StrayAllDay.com.
Now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That's the go-getter energy that moves anyone out there, especially yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book, one show, one masterclass that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic, you might have to work 10 times harder. And I'm pausing there just to let that sink in there. So Nico, leave that pause in there. Don't take that out. All right, this episode here is a reality check. This masterclass is a reality check for anyone who thinks that some charitable donation or some protest or a hashtag or some government official or some government agency or anything else, any act of magic is going to make the game easier for you overnight or even over several nights. That is absolutely wrong. It is incorrect. If somebody sold you that dream, all right, go get your money back. All right, if somebody sold you those magic beans, throw them out the window. And if a beanstalk has not grown by the morning, all right, you've been sold a bag of bullshit. Okay, sometimes in life, you're just gonna have to work 10 times harder. Sometimes it's just gonna take a little bit more effort on your part. And when I say 10 times harder, I'm not saying harder than you were before. I could mean it that way. Actually, that's one way you can look at it. But I also mean when I say 10 times harder, you might have to work 10 times harder than somebody else who has seemingly the same circumstances as you. But maybe it's just a slight difference, like as in where they're from, as in who they know, as in where they are, as in who their parents are, as in what slot that they got slotted in compared to the slot that you got slotted in. Maybe they just won a lottery that you didn't win. Maybe you lost a lottery that they didn't lose. You're just going to have to work 10 times harder than maybe the people around you, than maybe what you've been doing to this point, than maybe 10 times harder than what you expected to have to do in order to get to the outcome that you want. All right, that's what this reality check masterclass is about. This particular one. Every episode is a reality check in some way. Some of you might already have the reality of some of the things I'm talking about. But today, this one's definitely a reality check for somebody. Point number one. Topic again, you might have to work 10 times harder. Understand that inequality, meaning not everyone having the same setup or the same circumstances, that is baked into humanity. It's just the way that it is. I just told you in episodes number 1622 why equality is impossible. I told you in episode 1619, 3 days before that, how racial inequality is the fight that we will not win. In episode number 730, why equality is a myth. Okay, so I've addressed these things already. So if you haven't heard those, listen to those. Inequality is baked into humanity. So when you hear people talking about equality and making things equal while acknowledging at the same time that everybody is unique, you can understand that it makes no sense. There are people who will tell you they are fighting for equality or they're fighting against inequality. But at the same time, they acknowledge that everybody's unique. So it makes no sense. But you may be saying, Dre, we're not talking about everybody being equal as people. We're talking about everybody getting equal opportunity. Yeah, in these episodes, I told you about that too. Okay, 1622, 1619, and 730. All right, everybody is not going to get the same opportunity. All right, if you thought everybody was going to get the same opportunity, somebody sold you a bill of goods. And I told you about this in episode number 1628. The topic is, what about equal opportunity? Because you might think I'm just saying equality between humans. No, equality and opportunities also, that's not going to happen. If you thought it was, listen to episode 1628 and let me throw some cold water on that idea. But that doesn't mean all is lost. Okay, let's be clear. I'm never going to just leave you hanging with all is lost or nothing's going to work or your idea was incorrect or somebody sold you some magic beans. I'm going to tell you what to do with the situation so that you can get it to work in your favor. I'm always going to give you that here on the show. And I got 1,600 days worth of receipts that tells you that. And that's not even counting all the other content we put out there. So since we are all unique, and I told you why equality is impossible in episode 1622, understand one reason is this, that things are not going to always balance out between everybody, is that human beings, we all make different choices. You get two people Put two people in the exact same place and give them the freedom to do what they want to do. This is i.e. life. And people are going to do different things. Does everybody do the same thing? Does everybody do the same thing you do every day? All right, so everybody makes different choices. We all agree to this. So, of course, there's going to be inequalities because of this. Another thing is, we all start at different places. All right, so this scenario that I just gave you, put two people in the same place and just see what they do. All right, it's not even a fair example because not everybody starts at the same place. All right, does everybody you know start in the same place that you started? Maybe you and the people that you're around now, your peers, you might all end up at the same place, but everybody doesn't start at the same place. All right, I grew up with, luckily, I guess we could say, both parents in the home. I know people, I have friends who grew up without both of their parents in the home. I have friends of mine who were basically raised by people who were not their biological mother and father, but we ended up in the same place. We went to the same school. We ended up in the same business programs. We ended up in the same coaching programs. We ended up in the same industries doing similar things and creating similar levels of success, even though we started at completely different places. So sometimes it works out like that. And there are other people who started at similar places that were different from mine and didn't end up in the same place as me. This is just the way that it works. And there are people who started in the same place as me and didn't end up in the same place as me. Some of them did way better. Some of them did way worse. This is not changing, ladies and gentlemen. Despite what your favorite motivator or inspirator, if that's even a word, I just made it up, or your favorite politician or book author or social media influencer tries to tell you, this is not changing. You can fight it if you want. You are going to lose. All right. You ever fought against a brick wall? All right, you're going to lose. You can fight it if you want. I'm not telling you that you can't do it. You can choose to do that. All right, you can tolerate. Like we talked about yesterday, acceptance and tolerance. You can decide that you're not going to tolerate the brick wall and try to fight against it. All right, and good luck with that. All right, good luck to your hands doing that. But if you decide that you're going to accept the fact that this situation is a situation, that's what I'm telling you here today. All right, that you might have to work 10 times harder. This is sometimes in life is just a game, ladies and gentlemen. When I do a speaking gig, for example, this is something that I've given this example. I've shared this example before. Sometimes I got to be 10 to 20 times better than some middle-aged white man who's also trying to get the same speaking gig that I'm trying to get. That's not a diss to the middle-aged white men out there in the game, but it's also a truth. And any middle-aged white man who's listening to this right now will accept what I just said, that is true. If they don't want to accept it, that's fine. You ain't got to tolerate listening to this show. But the point is this. The point that I'm making in saying that is that industry, if I'm going to do professional speaking in the thought leadership world, the consulting world, it is made by and for middle-aged white men. So the game is rigged in their favor. And I'm not saying this to hate. I'm definitely not saying it to complain. I'm saying these are the people who do the hiring. That's who the audience is used to seeing. And if somebody like me steps on that stage, the scrutiny level is going to be a lot higher when I step on the stage than when some middle-aged white dude in khakis steps on the stage. That's just the game. I've seen some shitty middle-aged white male speakers give presentations that if I, as a black person or a female, was to give that same speech, all right, they'd be working at Home Depot for a living. They would not be a professional speaker. This is not a complaint. I want to be clear. This is not a complaint. This is the game. This is me explaining to y'all, this is the way that the game works, okay? This is just the way that the game works in life, that sometimes the situation is not rigged in your favor. Sometimes things just don't work the way that you want them to work, and you got to play the game. And if you're not willing to play the game, things are not going to go the way that you want them to go. If you are 5 feet, 7 inches tall, trying to play basketball at a high level, you can't afford to make the same mistakes, nor can you afford to have the same flaws as a 7-footer trying to play basketball at a high level. Why is that? Why does the 5'7" basketball player and the 7-foot basketball player not allowed to make the same mistakes or have the same flaws in their game? The reason why, because y'all are not equal. I don't care where you came from, how hard you work, how much you want it, how much you're willing to try, how much you're willing to learn, whatever other motivational bullshit you done got from whatever book you've been reading. If you are not equal to the other person, you and that person do not have the same circumstances. The rules are not the same for you as they are for them. This is the game. Most people are not going to tell you this, and if they do tell you, they're gonna gloss over it. They're gonna massage it in such a way to make you feel good, and so that so it doesn't actually register. Then they'll get back to their motivational mumbo jumbo without actually telling you the truth. I'm gonna tell you the real, and this is what it's actually going to be when you get out there in the world. So if you haven't experienced this yet, or if you have experienced this, then you can co-sign and let the person sitting next to you know, all right, this dude knows what he's talking about because I've seen this in my own life. And if you have not experienced this yet, when you go out and just keep living, stay alive, go live this, and when you experience it, you come back and you let me know, Dre, the shit you said was for real. That did happen. That is the game. That's just the way that it works. Point number 2. Today's topic is you might have to work 10 times harder. What you need to do, understanding what I just told you on point number 1, that everybody's not going to have the same circumstances. Everybody doesn't have the same setup. And sometimes you might have to work a lot harder than you expected or a lot harder than your peers just to get to the same point that they're at, or just to get to where you thought you'd be getting to with a lower level of effort. What you need to learn how to do is play your hand. Not play somebody else's hand, play your hand. And when I say play your hand, I'm talking about with the cards that you've been dealt, metaphorically speaking. In episode number 1579, I told you to never look at the food on another man's plate. If you have to be a bit smarter, or wake up a lot earlier, or go to bed a little bit later than the next man or woman in order for you to win, then shit, here's the question. Do you want to win or do you not? Because if you want to win, you might have to do something that they don't have to do. You might have to show up 5 days a week while they only got to show up 3 days a week. Sometimes in life, that's just what you have to do. When I was trying to get on playing professional basketball, I had a job at this gym called Bally Total Fitness, which is now out of business. But I was working there in this particular summer, 2005. And to get the days off that I needed to go to the exposure camp at which I got my career launched, it was a 3-day event. It was actually a 2-day event. But we were leaving from Philadelphia to get to Orlando. We were driving. And if any of you have ever you want to look this up on Google Maps, it's a 17 to 19-hour drive from Philly to Orlando. So I needed Friday off to do the drive, Saturday and Sunday to go to the event, and then we would drive back Sunday, get back to Philly on Monday, and I went straight to work when I got back Monday. But the thing is, when you work in that type of business, everybody has to work on the weekends. It's like a punishment, but everybody has to deal with it. So I had to negotiate with my boss, this guy named Steve, to get those days off in order to even go to the exposure camp, which meant for me to get those days off, here was my negotiation with Steve. It wasn't, hey, Steve, can you just give me these days off out of the kindness of your heart? No, that wouldn't be a smart way to play my hand, because he might have said no. And when somebody says no once, it's easier for them to say no twice, right? And I didn't want to have to quit the job if he was telling me no. I probably would have quit the job if he would have said no to go to the exposure camp. I wanted to keep the job and go to the exposure camp. So the way that I did that is, first of all, I came up with a plan ahead of time. Here was my plan that I brought to my manager, Steve. I said, Steve, I will work extra days before this camp. I'll work extra days after this camp. And I promise you, I will make up the sales that I normally would have made. I will make up those sales, those missed sales in the days before and after this weekend that I'm asking you to give me off. And the reason why Steve was willing to say yes to it is because I had earned the reputation as a very good salesperson. And this is a commission-based sales job. Steve, as the manager, he was on commission as well. And he knew that if his salespeople did not perform, the way Bally had the job set up at that time, if the salespeople didn't perform, the manager, he was the head manager of the whole gym, he would get demoted if the salespeople didn't perform. And they did it month by month. Like every month, they would promote and demote managers based on how well each gym was doing. It was a very high pressure, toxic environment, what Bally had set up back then, at least at that time. Well, now they're out of business. So I'm not saying that's the reason they're out of business, but I'm saying that's the reason that they went out of business. Sometimes in life, you got to be a bit smarter, work a little bit harder, go to bed a little bit later than the next person just to get what you need. Now, were there other people? When I went to this exposure camp, check this out. This camp was in Orlando, Florida. We drove, again, from Philadelphia to Orlando, did not sleep, got out the car and started playing basketball. Were there other players at this exposure camp? And I had to pay my $250 in cash because I didn't have a bank account and there was no other way for me to get them the money. Were there other players at that same exposure camp who didn't have to drive to get there? They took a plane, so they arrived in comfort, probably. Were there players who got there the night before the event started and got a good night's sleep in a hotel 5 minutes away from the venue of the exposure camp that I would now have to compete against after getting out of a car that I was sitting in for 17 hours straight and jumped straight out and start playing? Was I competing against people who had gotten a whole different setup before the event? Probably. Was I playing against players who had already maybe played professional basketball while I was a rookie just trying to get in the game? Probably. Was I playing against players who had just graduated college and didn't need to go get themselves a job because their parents said, you know what, we'll take care of you and let you go after this pro basketball thing for a year or two. You don't even have to work. All you got to do is just go practice basketball. We'll pay for you to go to this camp. You don't have to come up with the cash and pay it on the spot. Just go to this exposure camp. We'll pay for it. Just work out every day. We'll pay for your hotel. We'll pay for your flight. Get there early. Arrive in style and be comfortable. Was I competing against players who had that set up? Probably. Did I complain about it? No. But did I get out there and perform? Yes. Because if I hadn't, you wouldn't know my name and we probably wouldn't be having this conversation that we're having right now. Sometimes in life, you just got to do things that other people ain't got to do. This is just part of the game. When you play cards, any of you ever played cards? Blackjack, poker, spades, any kind of card. Uno, solitary, I guess not solitary, anything other than that. Anything with multiple people. When you play cards, no one has the same hand, right? No matter what level of card game you know how to play. If you're dealing with one deck of cards, even multiple decks of cards, I guess if you got multiple decks, sometimes people get the same cards. But you get the point that I'm making here. When you play cards, nobody has the exact same hand. The winner in a card game, at least in the long run of a card game, is the person who plays their hands the best, the most consistently over the time that they're sitting at the table. Now, I don't know how to play poker, but I've been to Vegas multiple times, and I've seen friends of mine sit down at the tables in Vegas and play poker. And I'm watching them play, and I've seen a friend of mine sitting at the table. It's like 15 people at the table, maybe 10 people at the table, and they're just dealing hand after hand after hand, and they're playing, and everybody's gambling and doing their thing, and people are smoking. And I can't sit in there for too long because I can't deal with the smoke from even a cigarette. I can't even deal with the smoke from a vape. I just don't like smoke in my eyes and all that. But anyway, the point that I'm making is sitting there watching them play, the person who ends up winning in the long run, or at least who comes up in the long run, because maybe multiple people can win, depending on what you're betting and when you bet and all of that. The person who wins is the person who plays their hand the best. It's not necessarily the person who got dealt the best hand, because who's to say what a good hand is, right? You could get dealt what somebody deems to be the best cards, but if you fuck it up the way you perform it, then will it end up being the best hand? Will you end up being a winner? Probably not. You can get dealt what may look like a mediocre or bad hand, but if you play it the right way and everybody else fucks up the way they play theirs, you might end up winning anyway. All right, isn't that just the way life works? Any of you who play cards, did I get that right? Did I explain that metaphor clearly enough? This is just the way that it works in life, ladies and gentlemen. People who play their hands the best, the most consistently, are the winners. And guess what? Human beings, we are just as unique as the hands that everybody gets dealt when we play cards. All right, next time you go to Vegas or Atlantic City, or, I mean, a lot of places have casinos. So next time you go, there's casinos in South Florida. So next time you go anywhere that has a casino and you play cards, look at it. And remember that I said this. The way you play your hand determines whether you're going to win or not. It's not what kind of hand you get dealt, because you can't always control that. I mean, for the most part, as I told you, 99% of life you don't control. Acceptance versus tolerance. We just talked about this yesterday. So, of course, we all have unique paths. Your job is to walk your path. And if you're not paying attention to the path that you're walking, you're not paying attention to taking the next step in front of you, because you're looking to your left and to your right and above you and below you and in front of you and behind you, and where everybody else is going, what path they're on, you might misstep on your own path, mess up your own outcome because you just weren't paying attention to your own path when there was nothing even wrong with your path. You were just so focused on what everybody else had going on that you messed up your own situation. You misplayed your own hand, not because it was something so wrong with your hand, but because you were so focused on what everybody else was doing. This is how a lot of people fuck up their potential success, by not playing their own hand, looking at everybody else's. Point number 3. Topic here today is you might have to work 10 times harder. Number 3, what happens when you work harder? You're listening and you're saying, okay, Dre, I get it. I got it. All right, I might have to work 10 times harder. All right, you done drilled it into my head. What benefit do you get from doing it? Let me tell you why this will help you working 10 times harder. Because me telling you that you might have to do this might not excite you so much. You might be like, damn, all right, now I gotta do all this extra work. I already did so much. Now I gotta do more to get to now I gotta do more to get to the bag, to get to the success. That's your, I thought the show was supposed to be motivational and inspirational, Dre. I mean, I never told you that, but maybe somebody told you that. Maybe that's the way you look at it. Dre, you're supposed to give me something to make me feel positive walking away. All right, well, let me finish the goddamn points. We still on point number 3. I didn't finish. When you know that you've worked harder, you know that you worked harder. You have an internal fortitude that you have now earned through your effort, your blood, sweat, and tears. And that internal fortitude that you earned by working 10 times harder than all your competitors, that can't be faked. Nobody can fake having worked 10 times harder. Nobody can Instagram their way to having worked 10 times harder. Nobody can copy that energy, that confidence that comes with it. If they haven't done the work like you've done the work, they can't pretend to have done the work. You have earned your confidence. You've earned your mental toughness. I told you in episode number 757 how discipline creates confidence. The discipline of showing up every single day to do the work earns you the right to be confident. It earns you the right to put yourself out there boldly and authentically. It earns you the right to have a level of confidence that calls some people who have not exercised the discipline, therefore they have not earned the right to feel the way that you feel. They don't even know what it feels like to feel how you feel. Causes them to call you cocky and arrogant because they just don't understand the level of confidence that you have earned because they've never been there before. You earn your confidence and mental toughness when you work 10 times harder. And if the game gets hard again, guess what? You are battle tested and ready to handle it. All right, because you've been there before. You're conditioned for it. You are built for it. As they say, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So be happy when you had to go a little bit harder in the paint, as we say, than other people had to go. If you had to put more effort in, good. Because now more effort is required again, you're ready for it and everybody else is out of gas. They didn't give everything they got. You got plenty of energy left. This is how any of you in sports, athletes, sometimes many athletes will overtrain, so to speak. They'll do training that's harder than what the actual performance is. So when they get into performance, the training is easy. In basketball, there was this object that I came across my senior year of college. After I graduated, I was still out in Altoona, PA, where I went to school. And I was in a gym and I came across this object. It was a basketball, but it's called the heavy ball. Now it was a regular size, regular shaped and circumference basketball, but it was 3 times heavier than a normal basketball. But it still bounced like a basketball. So the benefit of the heavy ball was that if you practice dribbling the ball and making layups, and I didn't really shoot jump shots with it, but dunking the basketball, the heavy ball, and you did that for a while, and then you picked up a regular basketball. The regular basketball felt like a tennis ball in your hands. It was almost like you could dribble the ball faster. Your hands were a whole lot stronger. Your fingers were a lot stronger. I used to practice dunking the heavy ball. So if I could dunk the heavy ball, when I picked up the regular ball and dunked it, it was so damn easy. And the whole point that I'm giving you is this. Another example was in basketball, you run up and down a court, but it's a flat surface. I would always train. I would train if I was on the treadmill, I'd put it on the incline and run up the treadmill on the incline, or I would run up and down hills. And there ain't no real hills in South Florida, but where I'm from in Philadelphia, there were hills. I would sprint up and down hills. Why? Because basketball's played on a flat surface. Why would I practice on a hill? It doesn't make any sense, right? But when you get on a flat surface and you're used to training on a hill, it's easy. So it's like we worked harder in the training so that when we got in the game, it was a whole lot easier to do the thing. And the whole point of me telling you that is to tell you this. When you got to work 10 times harder, you are ready for the performance. The performance is a lot easier than the training even was. So again, having it not needing it rather than needing it and not having it. Let's recap today's class, which is you might have to work 10 times harder. This is a reality check masterclass for anyone who thinks that some person or some movement or some donation or some protest is going to make the game easier for you overnight or even over several nights. That is absolutely wrong. Let me tell you what you should do instead. Number one, understand that inequality is baked into humanity. So when you hear people talk about equality while also acknowledging that we're all unique, it makes no sense. And I've covered this in episodes 1622, 1619, and 1628. We all make different choices. We all start at different places. And sometimes in life, you got to be 10 to 20 times better. And that's just what the game is. Whereas if another person didn't have to do that and they are trash and they still get the same opportunity as you, don't complain about it. Don't bitch about it. Just know that you earned your spot to get to where you are. Why? Because everybody ain't equal. Point number 2, play your hand. Don't play other people's hands. Episode 1579, I told you not to look on another person's plate. When you play cards, nobody gets the same hand. Everybody gets dealt different cards. And the people who win in the long run, as long as you're sitting at the table, are the people who best play the cards that they get dealt. You can't control the cards you get dealt. You can't protest when you get dealt bad cards. You either keep playing the game or you can get your ass up from the table and take your chips with you. But you decide which one you want to do. Walk the path that you're on. And number 3, when you know you've worked harder, you know you have worked harder. You have an internal fortitude that you have earned, and it cannot be faked. It cannot be copied by anyone who has not done the work the way that you did the work. You earned your confidence. You earned your mental toughness. And if the game gets harder again, you are battle tested and ready to handle it. And as they say, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. Be happy that you had to go hard because it builds you stronger, it makes you tougher, and it makes you ready to deal with whatever is coming next, because it was harder for you to get there than it's going to be for you to stay there. And if you want to learn how to take this mental toughness, this discipline, and this confidence, and apply these to your life in a serious way, so we can create a serious strategy for you to actually go and apply these in your real life to create real results, because you're tired of your work not working, then join us at Work on Your Game University so you can go through the 9-part Work on Your Game system, starting with the mentality. Then we get to the strategy. We have accountability in place, and then we get to taking action so you can get the results that you want in life. Join us, workonyourgameuniversity.com. Dre all day.